The General Service Administration's new ASTRO solicitation is the first of its kind. It will use Section 876 authority to avoid using price as an evaluation factor. Jim Williams is partner at Schambach Williams Consulting and former acting administrator of the General Services Administration. Thanks for being here. How is this ASTRO solicitation different than other contracts we've seen?
I think what's exciting about it is it's doing something that all of us in the industry has believed is the right thing to do for a long time, which is get rid of pricing at the master contract level for these multiple award GWACs, but instead make sure that you have pricing and have competition at the task order level.
And what was the idea behind this Section 876 authority? I think some people might originally think no pricing.
Well, I think it's really putting the pricing where it really belongs. And when you're doing it at the master contract level, when there's no real requirements behind it, it really is completely meaningless.
What has been the response of industry? Have they advocated for this, understanding that piece?
I think industry likes this very, very much, and there's been a clamor for this from industry for a long time, because they know that doing this pricing at the master contract level requires them to play more games, and they're really not bidding against anything that will ever be awarded. But when they're doing it at the task order level, that's where the government has real requirements, and they can put forth their best solution, their mix of their people and their labor hours in order to really craft something that makes sense for the government.
And if, the people in government have advocated for this, obviously Congress has gotten on board, industry likes it. What has been the delay? Why are we just seeing this now?
I think there's probably been a little bit of reluctance just to step out on this ledge. I think the Inspector General has not been a fan of this, I believe, in the schedules, but I think in the services schedules, it makes sense there too. And I think in almost all services contracts, that's where this makes a lot of sense. And I applaud GSA for doing this, for considering it, for their upcoming Alliance Small Business. But I think the people who did Oasis are doing this, Todd, and they're leaders, they're innovators. So I applaud them for doing this. I know it took 2 years, but still, I think it's great they're doing it now. And Emily Murphy said all along, let's get competition at the task order level where it makes sense.
You mentioned that it requires sort of stepping out on the ledge. What will you be watching? What will others be watching to make sure this is implemented appropriately, to make sure you do get that competition at the task order level?
Well, I think one is looking at the competition. But I think one of the things we overlook with looking at contracts, we look at, okay, what's the pricing? Price is still important. But I think we also have to look at, did it meet the mission? And I think, looking at things like the CPARS ratings, did what we're doing end up meeting the mission of the government agencies? In the case of ASTRO, this is going to be at first DOD, and we really ought to be looking at, did it meet the mission? I think the other thing, this requires the contract administrators to make sure that they administer these task order contracts and make sure there isn't a kind of a bait and switch type of thing that might have happened at the master contract level. When you're bidding on a real requirement, those are the people who should be working that labor mix. And if you're proposing somebody at a higher labor rate because it's specialized, then they really ought not to be substituting somebody of a lower quality than what they've been at the task order level.
It sounds like you think it might take quite a bit of time to figure out, did this work? Was this the right way to do this?
No, I believe that this is the right way to do it right now. I do think you need to evaluate it and see if it should be tweaked in any way. What else does the government need to do to make sure they're getting, as other countries call, value for money? But I do believe that this is an idea whose time has come. And if I were GSA doing it on ASTRO, I wouldn't wait to do it on other large service multiple award GWACs.
Do you predict that there will be other contracts that will follow ASTRO and doing it this way?
Yes, I do. And I think, with the way GSA is doing this is a lot like Oasis and a lot like Alliant, where with the self-scoring scheme, I don't think that necessarily makes protests go away. Because again, if you're excluded from this, then you're not happy because you're excluded from a marketplace until there's an on-ramp or something else that lets you have a chance of getting back in. So companies will still be very serious about doing their best to get into this. But I do think this is a great idea for all of these type contracts, and I think other agencies will look at this and say, yes, that makes sense.
It sounds like you think there are maybe some not so hidden, but other benefits that you might see from this type of contract, from reducing protests to maybe increasing efficiency or cutting the time it takes to get these multiple award contracts going. Is that accurate, do you think?
I think so, Marjorie. I hope they really focus on, is this contract really accomplishing the goals, which means meeting the mission of the agencies and doing it at a reasonable price. But I don't think we measure enough in contracts and leverage things like CPARs. How do we really ensure that we've met the mission?
And with just about 45 seconds to go, Congress has played a role in this. Do you expect them to be watching this or to take any further action on this issue?
Well, I'm sure they will be. And I think I applaud Congress for giving GSA the authority to do this. So I think they will want to know, hey, was this a good thing? Did it work? Tell us how it worked. And I think that they will be looking clearly at competition at the task order level to make sure there is competition, as Emily has said. But I think we should also look at the mission, look at the pricing, and looking at how should we make sure that we continue to administer these task order contracts so that we do accomplish all those goals.
Thanks for being here, Jim.
Thanks, Marjorie.